different strategies. In second grade, we're starting to implement a lot more digital and transferring that digital information to paper and vice versa. And so we're finding that it is a struggle, and we're working on implementing these things so that we are preparing them for third grade, because everything is on the computer with STAR, and yet they want them to take notes and annotate on paper. So as second grade, we are trying to start implementing these things, but we want them to kind of start in even kindergarten, just so that way once they get to second grade, they have a better idea of how to transfer information from the screen to print and print to screen. And so there are several different ways that we can do this for your grade level. Obviously, we are trying to differentiate with the literacy instructions so that we are meeting the needs of your kiddos, and we're meeting the needs of what is expected in the upper grade levels. And so one great thing that I like to use, especially when it comes to oral language, is showing silent videos. Like shorts like Goofy, Night for a Day. Just getting them to see something and use those, what do I see, what do I notice, what do I wonder, strategies and questioning skills to give them the opportunity to deepen their thinking. And yet we are expanding their vocabulary, we're expanding their comprehension skills, and we're using writing with their oral language so that they are able to develop their thoughts. So when they get to first grade and when they get to second grade, they would be able to write an actual response in a very high level thinking way. So silent videos are great because it gets their brains kind of flowing with different ideas. Who's the main character? What is the main character doing? What is the setting? And all of these different things. Problem, solution, all of the story elements in a silent video are there. We just don't have any words. So it gives the kiddos the opportunity to use their words in such a way that they are able to verbally say, oh, well, it looks like Goofy, because everybody knows Goofy. Goofy is doing such and such. And giving them the opportunity to use those comprehension skills, but not having to write it yet. We're just using our language. So I like to use those even with my second graders, especially towards the beginning of the year, because it gets their thought processes flowing, and it gets them to use their language in such a way that they can think through their thoughts and things like that. So this is more of like the digital aspect, and then transferring it into a written form using their verbs or their verbiage. But then you can expand upon that, and as you develop their skills verbally, then you can start using their writing skills and getting them used to writing responses, even if it's just in picture form. So one other way that I like to, and I mean, we are all pretty familiar with Seesaw, but we can take different snippets from the benchmark curriculum and put them into assignments, and giving the kids the opportunity to listen, because you can use that the microphone aspect, and you can be reading it as they're following along, and then have a question. And it does not have to be, what is the central idea of this poem? Mm-hmm. It can just be, what does a friend do? And that is the central idea. It's just in a kindergarten verb way. Like, we're taking it so that it's on their level of understanding, but we're still getting the marks for ELAR that we need for upper grades. So what does a friend do? A friend smiles, waves, a friend can sit with a friend. All of those different answers can happen, and they can answer it verbally using the microphone. They can draw it out, or they can write it. So Seesaw is really good because it can have all of the different aspects of how to answer a response, and it gives that differentiation for what the student is capable of. So one student might just need to use the microphone. One student might be able to write the response. Some students might even be able to type the response. And by second grade, we do need them to actually type, because in our school city and our quick checks, we have a constructive response. So they have to be able to type their answer and type their thoughts. So starting at that baseline of just verbally saying it can then go to the next level and say, okay, we can differentiate, and we can either vocalize it with a microphone or we can type it as well. So giving them the option, and it gives them the opportunity to speak their thoughts or write their thoughts in a more digital way. Because at the end of the day, we have to have them take a test on the screen, but they have to write their notes on a piece of paper. So they will actually have the piece of paper on their desk, and everything is written. So all of their annotations will be on paper, not on screen. And that's going to be for third grade as well. So if we're able to get them getting ready in kinder, then first grade, it's going to be even easier. We can add more difficult steps to it. And then by the time we get to second grade, they should have some familiarity with transferring their information from screen to paper and vice versa. So another thing that we can do to help with that process is obviously the Seesaw, and that's going to be
Do we
mostly
still have Seesaw? Because we weren't able to access a whole lot last year. So the year before, we used to do this stuff
right
with the group that y'all have actually, and all of our stuff was done on Seesaw. But then last year we couldn't access it the same way.
I have access to it, so it might have just been like a glitch.
Is still in there.
I have my roster from third grade still on it, so I think it's just something
I couldn't
that
even
needs to.
last year I couldn't open assignments. I could see my previous class, but I couldn't even look at assignments or anything.
And I can check on that for you guys as far as what technology is saying, because we are going away from the digital, the virtual learning, but I still think that Seesaw is useful. And I know that you guys do have computer shortages as well, so that is also an issue.
Yeah, we don't have any computers.
So taking that into consideration, we can practice this screen to print style of teaching where you can project it. This is still screen to print. And so if you had, say, this on the screen and you have what does a friend do as your question, then you can have the students write or draw what a friend does. Friend smiles. And you
I'm going to tell you that we do that exact thing in our reading and writing workbok. Like yesterday, we exactly what you just said, we did that in our reading and writing workbook. What you do with a friend.
Yeah, and having it in the, because you guys have the mentor text as well, right? Or do you just use
for grammar mentor text? Yes.
Okay. For
it's
reading,
not the same. It's one that Hennessy wrote.
Oh, okay. And that's good. You can do it in your workbook, but also doing it on blank paper is helpful, and maybe designing it or creating it so that there are different boxes. Maybe there's 4 squares. You do the hamburger, hot dog, and everything, and then one box is talking about the characters, or one box is talking about the setting, or what does a friend do, what is the main idea, all those different things, just so that they're transferring that information, and you guys are doing it already, so it's just helping doing it in the first grade and in second grade, because they can't annotate on the computer. And
Yet I had that exact same thing projected,
Mhm.
and their workbook was just a big empty square, and they had to
Perfect.
draw what they were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just one step of doing just what we need for second grade. And this is an example of a passage for second grade. So this is a nonfiction from Benchmark, and we're talking about keeping the country clean. They have the different sections. One thing that we have to emphasize in our instruction is talking about those key details, but in specific sections. So one of our questions, let me drop down. Which words in paragraph 3 give a clue to the meaning of pollute? So we're talking specifically paragraph 3. So just using that verbiage and saying, you know, obviously your text is going to look a little different, but you can say in sentence 1, and you can even label the sentences like 1, 2, 3, and say in sentence 1, what does the word amazement mean, or you know, amazing or beautiful, whatever the vocabulary word is for the day. And that just gets them used to focusing on one specific area and then answering a question, so that way they have the focus, and then they can focus their answers as well. Another thing that second grade has that you guys can implement in your own way is performance tasks. So integrating reading and writing into one activity. So in this one, there's a section called the U.S. Park Police. They have to read it. They also watch a video. So you could show a video about, or like a read aloud. So maybe you're focusing on Amelia Bedelia, and you are doing a read aloud, but they are looking at the words as it's being played. And then as they're reading or as they're listening to it, have them have like a piece of paper or a dry erase marker, whiteboard, whatever it is that you want them to use, whatever's easiest for your grades, your kiddos. Just have them write different keywords that they hear. Maybe it's a high frequency word that they hear often. I heard the. Okay, it's getting them used to focusing on something and then writing it down and getting it on paper. That way, when they come to second grade and they're reading a passage on their assessment, they can know how to focus on vocabulary words or keywords that they look for all the time. Maybe we're focusing on the word identify. So you're doing these things in a slow manner, obviously, like they're kindergartners, so we have to be mindful of their abilities and everything, but we do want them to get used to having to do these behaviors so that they can do it easily on third grade STAR. And pictures. Pictures also a great way to open up conversations for getting them creatively speaking. So you can show a picture of like a forest, and you can have them talk about a story that they want to create, and give them expectations. It has to have a main character. What is a main character? A main character is the person or people who are the most important in the story. And then talk about something that happens in that story. And it's all based on the image that they're seeing. So it's taking what they're seeing and giving them the opportunity to verbalize their thoughts. And with them creating the story, then when they are reading a story, then they're going to be able to read and analyze on a deeper level. They'll understand better what a main character is. They'll understand better what is a setting. And that way they'll be able to really understand and be analytical, but in a kindergarten way, because that's the fun part about it. You can be like very creative with it. My little duck friend is also another strategy that I like to use with my kiddos, and I give each friend their own duck, and based on the duck, what they see, they have to create a story with that duck. So this one is like an ice cream duck. So the student who has this duck could come up with anything from George the ice cream duck is serving I don't know, a party of other ducks, whatever the case may be. But it gives them something to touch, something to look at, and then gets them talking. And for your grade level, that's the biggest part of learning how to write and learning how to read analytically, is getting them to talk about what they're seeing. And so that's a strategy that I even use with my kiddos. And then, of course, we have just different books like decodables, level readers, and these are all from Reading A to Z that I printed out, that you can use to focus in on different aspects, whether it's the high frequency word, and you can have the kids even highlight the high frequency word every time they see it. That is getting them going from book to writing or analyzing. And even with like leveled books, there's a section where they get to write, and they can draw the picture and tell what they read about, you know, in some kind of way, even if it's just a couple of words.
And what we've done in the past is ask them to add to the story.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen too where they've used level books and they take like tape or whiteout and white out certain parts of the words or the sentences, and then let the kids fill it in. So based on what they're seeing on the image. So it's just getting them to think on a higher level, but using things that they're seeing. So you can,
I think that also Reading A to Z has a way for you to print it without words.
yes, it does. I haven't done that part because I don't know why, but some of my kiddos might need it. But yeah, you can print it without words, or you can white out different aspects of the sentences, and then they can fill in the blank based on what they're seeing. So that's another strategy that you can use as well. And then Learning A to Z as well, you can, I'm sure you already know, they have the capability of where you can assign different books, and then they will take a quiz on it. So they are able to practice taking a test on the computer. Again, I know you don't have computers, so this is just the next step if whenever Lord willing, you guys get computers.
We asked about it last week, so.
Yeah, so whenever you guys get computers, if you do, this is something that you can implement as well. Of course, this is a level L, but just to show you an example, you can assign it. And what's really great is you can modify how the students are seeing the book. You can have them listen to it. You can have them just read it. You can have the quiz. This is the multiple choice questions, but then they can have a short constructive response. Now with Kinder, it's going to be a little different. I probably wouldn't recommend doing the constructive response, but you can do some kind of typing program. I know that Ms. Sampson has the typing program that she uses in computer lab sometimes. So It is available. Now with second grade, all students are allowed to listen to the story until December. By December, unless they have the accommodation, they're gonna have to read it on their own. So what we're doing is progressively going away from the all around reading to or text to speech. So I've been unchecking the listen box when I assign the books, especially if I know students are at grade level or above. So that is something that you can modify and differentiate for your students. Again, your kindergarten, so I would have them listen to it constantly, but giving them the opportunity to also just read it is also very important.
And it records them on their grade, right?
That
the
one,
one that we did?
That's the one that we did where it
Okay.
recorded them.
yeah, I don't think this program does, but I can be wrong. And then of course you just assign it, and then once they get into their bench or their learning A to Z, it's gonna pop up in their assignments, and then you'll be able to use that as kind of progress monitoring just to see how they're doing with those comprehension questions, not just the reading fluency. And then
I feel like it also had them retell the story, like record and retell the story.
They had to click record, and then they would read the story through it, and they had to click stop. And then for the questions, they would click record and go through their questions, and then click stop.
Yeah, and that's great. That's getting them used to doing something on the computer or some kind of digital form. And I don't know if you guys have Epic, but I like Epic because it gives students so many different options for different genres. Given the fact that STAR is now kind of open, we don't know what genre we're going to get. We don't know what kind of writing style we're going to get. We don't know anything until the day of.
Can I ask you, what do you, for, you know how it says, how do you, for what reading level, what do you put for that? Like what, I'm not gonna say AR or whatever.
I do grade level, and that's just gonna be like the A through Z, and that's what we're
grade
kind of.
levels, so you put grade level on there? Okay, cause I didn't know which to choose.
And I mean, it's really up to you, but since we go with TRC, everything is A to Z, I just go with the grade level.
Yes, we don't have an AR program here, do we?
No. But on Epic, it does have that.
Yeah.
If you like that better, and it has Lexel as well. And I think one or two other options, but I'm not familiar with those. I just do
That's
the
where it
grade
said
level.
AR is like the one thing that Lexi to start reading.
Yeah. But I like this too because it does differentiate that literacy. It has different genres, it has comic books, it has the graphic novels, it has nonfiction, fiction, and it gives them, according to their reading level, what they can read. And then it has the audio book, it has the videos to allow them to see it and hear it in a different way. And so I use this as well, and this is something that would get them used to the digital form, and then you can accommodate with having them write about it or draw about it on a piece of paper. Just getting them used to doing one thing and doing another. Multitasking is unfortunately what they're gonna have to manage, and if we can nip it in the bud now, then we can do a lot better job of focusing on getting them prepared for the STAR with all of the things that they're gonna have to do. So, I know that you guys are kindergarten, I know STAR for them is a lot farther away than in second grade. But if we can take the steps and use those building blocks to start from the bottom and go up and just keep growing, it's gonna make everybody's job so much easier. I know it seems daunting now, especially because it's October and we're like, oh my goodness, what can I do now? But these are some things like you're already implementing. It's just being able to know like, okay, well, I have to get them used to this back and forth situation. I know that you don't have this for your class, but getting them used to from this to this is going to help tremendously once we get into 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades. And it's a little nerve-wracking because it is so different and we have so many unknowns with STAR. But if we can at least get them going with the strategies, then when they get to 1st grade, they're going to understand a little bit more. And then when they get to 2nd grade, because our kids are struggling with it because we are doing it in such a abrupt way. So.
Well, and I think we can see the effects that we have because like last year's 3rd graders, I mean, I think our, from what I gather, they did really well, and that was the first group that we did writing and specified phonics instruction with. So we can see that that's making a difference. So
Yes.
Adding even more.
Absolutely, and it's a marathon. It's not a race. We are not going to get it down this year, and we're not going to get it down next year. But if we can start implementing these things this year, then as we go on, it's going to be an easier task for everybody. So, other than that, I hope that some of these strategies to get you thinking about how you can implement them, and if you have any other ways that you like to do it, just let me know, because I would love to, know how you guys go from digital to print and vice versa, because with kinder it's so different. Kindergarten is a very different beast. So, giving me the opportunity to know how and what works best for your kids and your age group, I would love to know more. So, anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Well, that was easy enough.
You were just having.
Oh, okay. I appreciate that.